Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to another edition of The Brighter Side of the News. But today, there is no news. Today, I'm going to be reading from a very good book entitled Once Upon a Time in Japan. When I was a child, my father would read to me. Now, I don't have any children, but I still love to read stories to people. I think this book is very good for both Japanese people who want to study English and English speakers studying Japanese that want a challenge. You see, on one side, the story is written in Japanese. On the other, English. So here we go. I'll read to you from the book Once Upon a Time in Japan, edited by Sayumi Kawauchi, translated by Ralph F. McCarthy, and read to you by Omnicron Solaris. Grandfather Cherry Blossom. Once upon a time, a kind old man lived with his gentle wife in a village at the foot of a mountain. The old man was plowing his field one day when he heard someone shouting. It was the greedy old grouch who lived next door. "Bah! Get out of my garden!" "Yip, yip, 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 yip!" A little white puppy came running towards the old man and jumped into his arms, just as the greedy neighbor appeared. "That mutt was tearing up my garden. Hand him over!" demanded the neighbor. The frightened puppy was shaking and whimpering.
"I'm sure he didn't mean any harm. Won't you overlook it just this once?"
The kind old man smiled and bowed.
"I'm sure he doesn't bother you any more."
Suit yourself," grumbled the grouch, walking away angrily. "But if I ever see that stupid dog in my garden again, I'll kill him." The kind old man and his wife decided to keep the stray puppy. They named him Shiro, which means white, because his fur was the color of fresh fallen snow. Now Shiro had a very big appetite. The kind old couple gave him as much food as he could eat. The more he ate, the larger he grew. So soon, he was so big he could carry the old man on his back. One morning, as the old man was hoeing his field, Shiro came and tugged at his sleeve, as if he wanted to show him something.
"What is it, Shiro? I'm kind of busy, boy."
But Shiro wouldn't leave him alone. Finally, the old man climbed on the huge dog's back, and off they went, up the mountain beside the house. When they neared the top, Shiro stopped next to a tree and began barking. "Orf! Orf! Dig here! Orf! Orf!" The old man scratched his head, shrugged, and started to dig with his hoe. Before long, he struck something hard.
What's this?"
He kneeled down, reached into the hole.
"Why, it's gold! Gold coins! And lots of them!"
That night, the old man and his wife were sitting at home talking excitedly about how Shiro had found the treasure, when the greedy old grouch happened by with his even greedier old wife. They peeked through a hole in the door and spotted a pile of gold. When the grouch overheard the story, he was green with envy. He found Shiro, threw a rope around his neck, and dragged the dog home with him. The next day, the old grouch and his wife jumped on Shiro's back and drove him up the mountain, kicking and whipping him mercilessly. They had almost near the peak when Shiro's strength gave out, and he fell over panting. This must be the spot," cried the old man, and he started digging. But before long, clank! His hoe struck something hard. "Hooray! We did it! We're rich!" Convinced that they had found gold, the old grouch reached into the hole. What came out weren't gold bars at all, but slimy snakes. And weird, smelly goblins. The old grouch and his wife screamed and fell back, covering their eyes. When finally they opened them, the snakes and goblins were gone, and their fear gave way to rage. "Look at what you've done, you stupid dog," yelled the grouch. "I'll teach you not to make a fool of me again." He picked up the hoe and gave Shiro such a blow on his head that it killed the poor dog instantly. The kind old man and woman, of course, were heartbroken when they learned what had happened. They carried Shiro down from the mountain and buried him near their home. Next to the grave, they planted a little tree, and after saying a prayer for the dog that they had loved so much, they went home with tears in their eyes. Now that might have been the end of the story, but soon a wondrous thing began to happen. The tree the old couple had planted started to grow at an unbelievable speed. In no time at all, it was so large you couldn't reach around it. One morning, the old man and his wife were putting fresh flowers on Shiro's grave when they looked up at the great tree and marveled at how it had grown. And at that moment, something even more wondrous happened. They heard a voice coming from inside the trunk. "Make me into a mortar," it seemed to be saying. "Make me into a mortar." The old man scratched his head, shrugged, and went down to the house to get his axe. He cut down the tree and shaped part of the trunk into a large mortar for pounding mochi soft cakes.
Come to think of it, Shiro always loved mochi, didn't he?
Said the gentle old man when they got the mortar home.
Let's make some and put it on his grave.
The old man pounded the rice in the mortar with heavy wooden mallets, and after every swing his wife kneaded the gradually thickening dough. It was getting smooth and sticky when suddenly the old woman stopped, pointed inside the mortar. Something was glittering in there.
Look, dear, what's that? I don't know. I've never seen mochi like this.
They took the dough out of the mortar and rolled it into little round cakes. And as they watched, the mochi hardened and began to shine even more brightly.
Why, this isn't mochi,
the old man cried.
It's gold!
And so it was. And who should show his face again just at the moment but the greedy old grouch from next door. He and his wife had been peeping in the whole time. "Say, how about lending me that mortar?"
But it's all we have left of dear old Shiro.
"Oh, you'll get it back. Don't be so stingy." The grouch and his wife walked right in, carried the mortar away, and as soon as they got home, they started to pound their own mochi. They kept peering inside the mortar. "It hasn't changed color at all. I know we've got to shape it into little cakes." So that's just what they did, placing the small round pieces in a row on the table. And sure enough, right before their eyes, the mochi began to change. But not into gold. It became a gooey, black mess of black charcoal. The grouch and his wife stared at the mess in disgust and were about ready to begin yelling at each other when poof! The charcoal exploded, filling the kitchen with flames and black soot. Sputtering and shouting, He grabbed his axe and chopped the mortar into tiny bits and threw the pieces into the fire. The kind old man broke down and cried when he heard what had happened. He went back into the Grouch's house, gathered up the ashes of the mortar, and placed them in a basket.
Shiro,
he sobbed as he carried the basket back home. His gentle wife tried to comfort him.
let's scatter these ashes on the field,
she said.
and let's grow some of those giant radishes that Shiro used to love so much.
The old man agreed, and they walked slowly out to the field with the basket. Now it was a very windy day, and as the old man was scattering the ashes, some of them blew onto a withered old cherry tree. And that's when the most wondrous thing of all happened. As soon as the ashes fell on the tree, the dry old branches sprang back to life and became covered with beautiful cherry blossoms.
Goodness gracious! Come quick, dear! Watch this!
And as his wife looked on, the old man ran about, sprinkling his ashes on cherry trees. And every cherry tree touched by the ashes soon began to bloom. Soon the little field was alive with colorful flowers. In the days that followed, all of the people in the village came to marvel at this wonderful sight. "Such lovely cherry blossoms," they would say, "and it's not even spring." The word spread like wildfire from village to village until it reached the ears of the great daimyo. Once he'd heard of this miracle, the daimyo decided he must see it with his own eyes. Taking 10 or 12 of his best soldiers, he made the long journey over the mountains to the little village where the old man lived. When he got to the house, the old man came out, bowing to greet him.
"I've heard a lot about you, old man,"
said the daimyo.
"Let me see what you can do."
The old man climbed up a withered cherry tree.
If it pleases your lordship,
he announced,
I'll make this dead cherry tree come back to life and bloom.
And that's exactly what he did, much to the daimyo's amazement. The ashes he sprinkled on the branches turned in the twinkling of an eye into lovely pink and white flowers.
"Extraordinary! I've never seen anything like it,"
the daimyo explained.
"Old man, you're the best cherry blossom maker in the land, and henceforth, sir, you shall be known as Grandfather Cherry Blossom. Allow me to reward you with this."
The daimyo held out a sack full of silver and gold. "Just a minute, your lordship," came a familiar voice. The greedy old grouch from next door ran up to the daimyo and bowed. "I'm the real Grandfather Cherry Blossom. Watch this!" He snatched the basket back from the kind-hearted old man, climbed into a tree, and threw ashes high into the air. But instead of turning into cherry blossoms, the ashes merely fell towards the ground, and a gust of wind blew them right into the daimyo's face. The daimyo sneezed and coughed and rubbed his eyes and brushed ashes off of his clothes. He was enraged.
"Arrest that impostor!"
So the grouch was tied up and carted off to jail. And it served him right, don't you think? Well, there you have it. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it useful. If you enjoyed this story, why don't you consider buying the book? It's only 1,000 yen. So, until next time, just remember, no matter where you go, there you are. Thanks for watching.